Going to show you how to get started with Blossom on a new account. On a new account, you'll probably be greeted with the onboarding page where it basically tells us to create a cluster, add a server, and deploy an app. Let's click on continue setup here. Then it gives us two options to create a new cluster, either using a blueprint or starting from scratch. We're going to use the blueprint to get started quickly. There are three different types of blueprints here, minimum server, basic setup, and highly available cluster. I'm just going to click on one of them, and I'm going to go back and explain all of them. On this page is showing us that basically generate a cluster name. And then now, because it's a new account, we don't have a cloud provider yet. You haven't connected one yet. So you just have to click on add cloud provider. Then you could choose your cloud provider of choice here. You can use any of these. I'm gonna use Hertzner. And I'm gonna go ahead and name it Hertzner Demo. I'm gonna go and grab my API key and paste it right in here. Now I just click save. And then now there's this really handy button called check credentials. So you click on that. And that makes a live API call to the cloud provider. It's just a basic API call. It doesn't test everything, but it does a good sanity check, okay? And if that's not working, you want to click on edit cloud provider and then double check that your keys are correct. And then just click check credentials until it passes. That's pretty important. Then once you're done, you just click done. That's going to refresh the page essentially with the cloud provider. So the region has been selected. It's just the default region. You can use whichever region that you prefer. And now we could talk about the different server configurations. So there is a minimum server blueprint here. And that is just one server with all the roles onto that server. So you can see it's gonna run the load balancer, the web, a worker tier, databases, everything. Then you can click on different server sizes here. And you're gonna tell it to install these databases, Postgres and Redis. So that's what that is all about. This is, one server configuration is useful for just saving money. It's basically very economic because you're just throw everything onto one server. A basic setup is basically good for dev and QA environments and stage environments, I would say. Basically, you have a separate web server and separate build server and separate database server. And it's nice to separate these servers because then you're sure that the load doesn't affect each other. Then highly available cluster. So this one basically has a separate load balancer, and then basically two web servers here. You can add more web servers you want. A separate worker server, so your background jobs don't affect, let's say, your web requests. And a separate build server that builds the Docker images, and a separate database server because you want to keep the state kind of on a separate server here. And then we're going to install Postgres and Redis. For this video, I'm going to go ahead and use this highly available cluster right here. So I'm going to click create cluster. And now it's creating the cluster, and the first thing it does is actually shows you some logs here, and we click on the logs. You can see it created like a network, a VPC, and a firewall. So interestingly, only the three major cloud providers really, like AWS, Google, and Azure I'm thinking of, are to follow a closed by default security model. So all those other cloud providers, if you launch a server, you don't have access to anything unless you explicitly open the ports. But Hertzner and DigitalOcean, these other cloud providers, they kind of lean more on convenience, and they have actually an open port security model by default. So Blossom, what it tries to do is gently guide you to close your ports. So it creates a VPC, and it also creates a firewall rule and kind of locks everything down and kind of gives you best security practices right out of the gates. Port 80 and 443 is open because you're likely to be running a web app. And so that's what that's about. And you can see right here in the logs, it says created these servers. So the servers have started provisioning, and we click on Blueprint here. And we go back here, you can see the status is provisioning. And you can see there's a view clusters detail button. Click on that. You can see all the servers are now updating. So they passed the creation phase and now they're updating phase. What that essentially does is just bootstraps these servers with essentially Docker, so then you could deploy and run your application. After a few minutes, our servers are ready. So they're active and ready. And I want to show you the servers actually in the cloud providers console. Click on server here, and you can see all the servers have been kind of provisioned. I also want to show you the network. The network was also created here, and you can see the network, and you can also see the firewall. Let's click on servers again here. So that's all been provisioned now, and now we're ready to create our app. You could either create like an empty app here and then fill out your details, or use one of the quick starts. So I'm gonna use a quick start here. And for this, I'm gonna use Python Django here. So click on configure and deploy. And the nice thing about the quick start here is it tries to pre-fill a lot of these form fields for you as convenience. So you can see here's is using the cluster that we just created. The app name is Python Django, and here's the repository URL, and it's basically right here. So I'll just show you this real quickly. But basically, it's a jokes app, and I do want to point out that the example app here, it does not have Docker file, and because it doesn't have a Docker file, what Blossom is doing is actually using some heuristics to detect what application you are going to deploy, and then from there it figures out what build strategy you should use, and then it basically is going to be able to build a Docker image even without a Docker file. And the nice thing about that is you don't have to manage the Docker file. Now, if you want to, you can always use the Docker file, and then you can just tell Blossom, use the Docker file and build my Docker file image instead. And that's useful also if you have really custom needs. But for the most parts, using a Docker file is completely optional. Next, there's the Git repository. I just went over it. Container registry. So container registry, we don't have one yet because it's a new account. So what you want to do is you want to add or connect to a new container registry. All these container registries are supported here. We're just going to use Docker Hub. Then we're going to add your username. So, let me name it first. I'm going to call this Docker Hub, and then my username there. And then I'm going to grab my access token. And paste it right in there. And click on Add Registry. So the registry now has been added and configured right here. I do want to point out that it tries to fill out this image repository name here. This needs to exist. If you're using Docker Hub, you have to go create it. I've already created this ahead of time, but or you can just change it to another one that you want to use. And then it does pre-bake some environmental variables as part of the quick start, just to get you going quickly. And then last thing is the database configuration here. So we're going to use that database because this is a Django app, so it requires a database. Now you just click Create App. And now it redirects us to the app dashboard, and it's telling us with this bouncy arrow, click Deploy. So we click on that, and that starts the deploy process. The deploy process is going to take a little time. Basically, here's the top level deploy, and then it's starting to build essentially the Docker image, and it's going to kind of go through all the phases and get your application up and running. While that's going, let's go through the dashboard and the UI so you get a feeling for how everything works. Here's the dashboard again. Right now there's 0 processes because the app hasn't been deployed yet. But processes are like a web process, a worker process. Here's the cluster. Here's the repository that we opened up earlier. And I just opened up again so you can see it. Maintenance mode is off, but you can turn on and off maintenance mode with the settings here. And here's the deploy log again. Git repos next. So we use a public repo, but if you want to, you can easily use a private repo. You just go switch to private repo, click on connect provider, and you use any of these Git providers. GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket, they're all supported. The nice thing about using this connection is once you connect that, then you can actually set up a CI/CD with one click. It's just one click to set up essentially Git push, and then your app's gonna automatically deploy. And the nice thing about that is you don't have to set up your own CI/CD server. You don't have to set up Jenkins. You don't use or set up GitHub Actions. Of course, you can always use that. If you have more custom kind of deployment workflows, then you could use that, your own GitHub Actions, and then basically just curl to this endpoint right here with a post request, and that's going to kick off the deploy on the Blossom side. But a lot of people, it's fine just to basically do the one-click CI/CD pipeline, and then you're kind of done with it. Let's see what else here. There's build configuration. Next is Docker registries. Okay, so Docker registry, we set this up as part of the quick start, but this is the image name that is gonna build the image and then push the image to. And here's the linked registry that is gonna authenticate with. And you can authenticate with multiple registries. So let's say you want to authenticate with Docker Hub to avoid the rate pool limit. And then authenticate maybe with ECR, so you could push up to like a private ECR repository, and then you can also do that. Next is services. So services are like databases or Redis. And for this service right now, you can see the database, the Postgres service is linked, and then by linking, it provides this database URL environmental variable automatically to your application. You can link more services too, like Redis. Here you can go click link, and then you can link that too. Then you can provide the Redis URL environmental variable. I'm going to click on environment, and you're going to see on the environment there's our environment variables from the quick start, but there's also the linked one that I just talked about right here. So that's automatically provided. Next is activity. You're going to see that basically this is just a dedicated page showing all the deployment logs and other updates to your application and your cluster. Okay, next is app logs. So app logs, this is pretty neat. Right now it says no container process being found because we're still in the middle of deployment. But once basically a process is up and running, then what this is going to do is actually show you a live stream, like a tail log of all your logs in your containers across all your containers, across all your clusters. Processes up, like that one basically just finished. So let me see if this is up now. Yeah. So this is still going to take some time to kind of start the streaming because it probably hasn't gotten to the part yet where it has started essentially the Docker container. Once it starts though, this is kind of being streaming now. It's going to stream and you can watch it. There it started. Then you can click host so you can see which host it is on, which process it is on, and everything there. So that's pretty useful. You can search the logs and all that too. Processes, I just show you that, but for that you could go back and click logs. That just takes us back to this app logs here, or scale. So this is how you scale with Blossom. You could essentially scale the number of containers running on each server. So this one, if you add the 2 and click scale, it's going to scale it up. And then you can see right here it says 1 per server. I didn't change it, but basically I'm trying to explain that basically it's a container process per server. So if you had 2, then be 2 times 2, and then be 4 total containers across the cluster. So that's how you can scale it. You can restart by clicking on this too. Next is custom domain. So this is important. Most of the time, you don't want the generated short URL for your apps, for your users. You want your own custom domain. So you just add a custom domain here, and then you connect your IP address there, and then you could use your own user-friendly domain. Next is health checks. So health checks is used for zero downtime deployments. So you want to enable this once your app is stable. So this is off by default just while you're getting started. You're trying to get everything set up and running. But once you're ready, you want to enable this, and then you want to point to the path that you have your health check on. And once this is enabled, then it allows Blossom actually to do zero downtime deploys. Essentially, kind of it can use this health check as part of deployment, so there's no downtime. There's more options here. It's kind of more advanced here, like resource limits and all that. But I'm going to kind of skip down. I'll show you a Docker build real quick. Because earlier I mentioned what happens is when Blossom deploys your app, it uses a little bit heuristics. It basically figures out what language and framework your application is. And then from there, it uses an appropriate build strategy. So a lot of times it can be using build pack, and Heroku is basically using Heroku build packs by default. You can override this with other build packs. But Heroku build packs are pretty solid. They've been around for a while. Or like I said, you could use your own custom Docker file here, and if that's what you want, and you could basically select that. But I do recommend just leaving it auto detected. And you can also use Nix packs and a pre-built image, or a static site if you're just hosting a static site. And static site is pretty useful also. But again, most of the time it just auto detects it, and if it detects that you're using, let's say, a static site generator, then it's actually automatically use the static site generator. Otherwise, it's going to use build pack and try to figure out what it needs to build. Okay, next is checklist. So the checklist, when you're getting started, I do recommend going all through this, like a custom domain and health checks. But because we use the quick start, a lot of these things are already checked off for us. On an empty app, if you're just creating an empty app without quick start, then you're going to see these things, and then you have to go through all these things to kind of get your app ready to deploy. Next is settings. So here's just the app name. You can rename it. Renaming is no big deal. And maintenance mode. So this is how you enable maintenance mode, which throws up a maintenance mode page, right? HTML page on your site. So that's how you enable it. There's other settings in here, and this is how you also delete your app. Let's see, servers. This is another server view here, and then this just takes you to the cluster kind of view. Let's go back here to the dashboard. Okay, it looks like our deployment is now completed. So Let me step through this and explain what it's doing and how it works. But basically, the first step right here is apps build. So apps build is going to build your Docker image, and you can see at the end, it pushes your Docker image up to your registry. And then it goes through apps release hook here. So this is in your proc file. There's a release process, and it's just like the Heroku style, where if you have a process defined there, you can use that. You can also actually override that release process with the UI if you need to. But here it's just basically gonna run migrations and basically get the database prepped and ready. And then you can see here what it did was it also deployed to the 2 web servers that we provisioning as part of the Blueprint cluster. So if you click on this, you can see it basically uses Docker Compose. So it pulled down the image that was built here and then basically deployed it across your fleet of servers. Next is it creates a managed domain, which is just a short URL, so you can have so you can access the site essentially immediately. It sets up a proxy and a load balancer. It has proxies on each of the app nodes and then load balancer. So here's the interesting thing. With Blossom, it can create a load balancer for you, and then as you add new servers, those servers are going to automatically be added to this load balancer because Blossom knows about it. You don't have to go configure anything. It just will automatically know. And the nice thing also is because you're running your own load balancer, it's actually much more cost effective than using a managed load balancer. Now there's some pros and cons to each, just so you know. But if you're using this one, then you don't have to actually do any configuration at all. And it works for a lot of use cases, I would say. That covers how kind of deployment works. And see this log up here is like the top level log that shows how all the commands is executing across the fleet of your servers. And these are kind of logs within kind of each server or child logs, you could say. Next, I kind of want to show you the Docker jump into the Docker container on the server itself. So let's go to actually servers here, and let's go click on one of the web servers. So on the web server here, you can see it provides you with some kind of handy commands that kind of tell you like, how to get into the server. I should also point out that what you want to do is in order to SSH in, you actually have to add your SSH key. I already added mine. You can add it at the account level or the cluster level. So let me show you the cluster level real quick and then show you the account level. So here, if you're on settings, SSH keys right here. Then you add a new SSH key here if you want to. But what I did is actually I added it at my account level just because I didn't want to add it for every single cluster. So I actually have a key here, and what you do is just add new SSH key. You grab your public key. So it'd be cat like that. You grab this here, right? Paste this in here and name it something. And I've already have my key here. So because of that, it's already on the server. And once you add a key there, it adds it to all your servers at the account level, all your servers and all your clusters. Let's go back to clusters here. And let's go back to servers. Let's go to the web server. And now let's go back to the command here. So I'm going to click copy there. Now I'm going to let's clear the screen and go SSH in there. So it's going to go into the server. And now if you do Docker PS, that's kind of a good way to explore. Then you can see that it's already running Docker containers. And Blossom makes use of Docker Compose for orchestration here. So if you actually go Docker Compose LS, and you can see actually all the Docker basically Compose services here. If you can CD into one of this, and then you can go to Docker Compose Compose PS. Let's add a space there. Then you can see there in Docker Compose kind of running. Now that's one way to do it, and it actually gives you some tips here saying you can CD in the directory and you can run it here to kind of exec into the container. So that's kind of one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is actually there's a doc wrapper here. The doc wrapper, if you go doc ls, it shows you actually all the apps running on this server and within this cluster. And then you can actually go docker exec, then Python Django right here. Then you could actually exec into it. And that's just a simple wrapper that does what you could do with Docker Compose. It's just easier to kind of remember because it's shorter. So now I'm not just in the server, but I'm inside the container in the server. So with that, what we could do is, since this is a Django app, you can go curl localhost right now, 3000. And then you can see basically this is a Django app. This is what was deployed. And I'm just debugging right now with the kind of terminal to show you how it all works. But what you can also do now, because this app up and running, is you can click on apps and let's go Django app here. And here there's a view app button. So if you click on this, this is the application that we just deployed on a brand new cluster and using that Django Quick Start. And you can see that it's connected to the database here. You can see view all jokes. You can go edit the jokes. You can delete the jokes. It's actually connected to the database that we launched as a part of that cluster. So I think that pretty much covers it. That should show you how to get started with Blossom on a brand new account. Thanks.